You know, when you think about the cutting edge of modern air warfare, you're probably picturing a multi-billion-dollar radar-evading supersonic jet tearing through the stratosphere at Mach 2.
Right, like a sci-fi movie come to life.
Exactly. But what if I told you that right now, in the 21st century, over 20 of the world's air forces are aggressively investing their defense budgets into a propeller plane?
It sounds completely counterintuitive, I know.
It really does. Today, we're looking at some technical and promotional literature from Embraer's Defense and Security Division. We are specifically focusing on the A-29 Super Tucano.
Which is an incredible piece of machinery.
Yeah, and the mission of today's deep dive is to explore this really fascinating paradox. We want to know why modern military strategy is leaning so heavily into a turboprop aircraft in an era completely dominated by stealthy supersonic jets. Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, to really understand the paradox, we need to totally reset our baseline of what makes an aircraft effective today. The A-29 Super Tucano is not some retro throwback. It isn't, a nostalgic museum piece that an Air Force just dusted off to save a few bucks.
Like a World War II prop plane or something.
Exactly. It's not that at all. Embraer actually designed this platform from the ground up to be a highly specific 3-in-1 aircraft.
3-in-1.
It's engineered to master 3 distinct domains. So that's light attack, armed reconnaissance, and tactical training.
And you mentioned earlier that it's utilized by over 20 different air forces globally.
It is, which proves that this isn't just some fringe concept. It is a proven, highly calculated answer to the realities of modern combat.
It's wild because, at first glance, it really does look like it belongs in a history documentary.
Yeah.
But as I was reading through the architecture in our sources, it actually started to make perfect sense.
Yeah, how so?
I like to think of the A-29 as a high-end multi-tool. So if a modern supersonic jet is a specialized surgical scalpel, meaning it does one specific thing incredibly well, but you'd never use it to chop wood, this aircraft is the multi-tool.
That is the perfect way to frame it.
It just perfectly adapts to whatever environment it's placed in.
Right, because in modern asymmetrical combat, agility and adaptability will almost always trump pure, unadulterated speed. And that adaptability is directly written into the physics of how this plane flies.
Oh, the flight requirements. Yeah, the numbers absolutely blew my mind.
They're pretty staggering.
The source states it has a maximum operating speed of 320 knots calibrated airspeed, or KCAS. And it cruises comfortably around 280 KCAS.
With a service ceiling of 35,000 feet, which is pretty high up there.
Yeah, but the real shocker for me is its stall speed. It can fly at just 80 KCAS without falling out of the sky. For you listening, 80 knots is about 90 miles per hour.
Which is incredibly slow for a military aircraft.
I mean, people drive faster than that on the highway. How is an airplane staying airborne at that speed?
What's fascinating here is how the aerodynamics of that turboprop design dictate its mission versatility. That incredibly low stall speed of 80 KCAS is achieved through a straight-wing design.
Oh, so it generates a massive amount of lift at low velocity.
Exactly, and that is entirely a feature, not a bug. Think about the Close Air Support Role, or CAS.
Right.
In a CAS mission, the aircraft needs to work jointly with friendly forces on the ground. Usually, those forces are being guided by a Joint Terminal Attack Controller, a JTAC.
And a JTAC isn't just, a guy standing in a field with a walkie-talkie. We're talking about a highly trained soldier sitting in the mud, potentially under enemy fire.
Exactly.
And they're trying to guide an aircraft to strike a target that might only be a few hundred feet away from friendly positions.
Right, so paint that picture in your mind. If you call in a supersonic jet for that strike, that jet is flying so fast that it blows past the entire battlefield in a matter of seconds.
Oh, wow. Yeah, the pilot has a microscopic window to identify the target, align the shot, and get out.
But the A-29, because of that 80-knot stall speed, it can loiter. It acts as this watchful eye that literally stays in the same patch of sky.
So it remains visually connected to the ground forces.
Exactly. It provides sustained, methodical support instead of just a hit and run.
Loitering is a massive advantage there, which actually brings us to its endurance. The source material notes that if you equip the A-29 with 3 external fuel tanks, it has a maximum range of 1,550 nautical miles.
That's a huge distance.
It is. But the endurance figures are even crazier. On just its internal fuel, it can stay airborne for 3.4 hours.
And it gets better if you add external tanks.
Right, if you throw on 2 external tanks and its sensor pods, it pushes that endurance to 5.2 hours, over 5 hours circling a single area.
Think about the operational implications of that for its second role. Armed reconnaissance? or maritime anti-piracy patrols.
You'd need an aircraft that can hover over an ocean or a border for half a day, basically.
Yeah, observing and monitoring for illegal activities. And the turboprop engine provides what the source calls a low footprint.
Meaning low noise.
Low noise and a remarkably low visual signature. I mean, a roaring jet engine announces your presence to everyone within 50 miles. But a turboprop flying high and slow is incredibly discreet.
And it doesn't even need a pristine 2-mile-long concrete military runway to do any of this.
No, not at all.
I was reading the field performance specs, and it only needs about 900 meters to get airborne. And that's to clear a 50-foot obstacle like a 5-story building on takeoff at sea level.
It's basically a bush plane on steroids.
You could realistically launch this thing off a dirt road in the middle of a jungle.
But wait, hang on. I have to push back on something here.
Okay, go for it.
Because this seems like a massive logical flaw in the design. It's marketed as a light attack aircraft.
Right.
If this airframe is incredibly light and agile, which is its main selling point, the second you strap thousands of pounds of bombs, missiles, and external machine gun pods to the wings, don't you instantly ruin the aerodynamics?
But that is a very valid point.
Doesn't just become a flying brick?
Well, that exact problem is actually one of the most difficult engineering hurdles in light aircraft design.
Yeah.
If you put heavy gun pods on the wings, you create immense drag and throw off the center of gravity. So how did Embraer fix that?
Their solution is brilliant, and it's a crucial detail in the source material. The A-29 is the only aircraft in its specific category that features an internal machine gun.
Oh, wow. So the guns are literally built deep inside the skeleton of the wing itself?
Precisely. It houses 2 internal .50 caliber machine guns.
That's amazing.
Yeah, by integrating the weapons directly into the internal airframe, they maintain the aerodynamic purity of the wing.
Oh, and I'm guessing that frees up space too.
Exactly. It completely frees up the external hardpoints or pylons beneath the wings. The aircraft features a highly advanced store management system that manages these pylons.
And the source said those are fully compatible with NATO standards and MIL-STD 1760 systems, right?
They are.
Let's break that down for a second, because MIL-STD 1760 sounds like total alphabet soup. Essentially, that's a universal digital translator, right?
That's a great way to put it.
It basically means the plane's computer can plug into and talk to almost any modern smart weapon in the military's inventory.
That's exactly right. It's a standardized electrical interface. Because the machine guns aren't taking up space on those pylons, the A-29 boasts more than 160 different external configuration possibilities.
Wow, 160.
Yeah, you can load it with laser-guided bombs, air-to-air missiles, or unguided rockets, depending on what the specific mission requires.
So it maximizes lethality without sacrificing the stability and agility of the airframe.
Exactly.
Okay, but this naturally leads to a really terrifying scenario. If this plane is loitering at 80 knots in a combat zone, acting as a watchful eye for ground troops, it's also a massive, slow-moving target.
Yeah, for anyone down there with an anti-aircraft missile.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How does the pilot survive that?
That brings us directly to the cockpit and the incredible suite of survival technology Embraer packed into it.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because you look at the propeller on the nose and you think vintage aviation. But you step inside the cockpit and it is a completely different universe.
It's entirely modernized.
The source mentions it is fully pressurized with air conditioning, which makes sense if you're flying at its service ceiling of 35,000 feet.
Right.
But it also has an anti-G system and something called OBOGS. That's an onboard oxygen generation system.
Those systems are absolutely vital for pilot endurance. When a pilot pulls high G maneuvers to dodge incoming fire, the gravitational force pulls blood away from their brain.
Which can cause them to black out, right?
Exactly. So the anti-G system automatically inflates a specialized suit worn by the pilot. It squeezes their legs and abdomen to force that blood back up into their head.
That is so cool.
Oh.
And what about the OBOGS?
That is a phenomenal piece of engineering. An OBGS doesn't just hold oxygen in a tank like a scuba diver.
Wait, it doesn't?
No, it actually bleeds ambient air off the engine's compressor, forces it through a chemical sieve to strip out all the nitrogen, and feeds pure, breathable oxygen to the pilot in real time.
So the plane literally breathes the sky.
It literally does.
That is incredible. So you never have to land just because you ran out of oxygen tanks?
Exactly. And while the pilot is breathing the sky, they are interacting with the aircraft using OTIS task controls.
Hands on throttle and stick.
Right. For you listening, think about the cognitive load of flying a combat mission. Imagine trying to play a grand piano while driving on a highway at top speed.
That sounds like a nightmare.
That's what operating a modern cockpit feels like. Otis solves this by putting the piano keys right onto the steering wheel.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah, the buttons and switches for the radar, the communications, the sensors, and the weapons are all ergonomically mapped directly onto the throttle and the flight stick.
So the pilot rarely, if ever, has to take their hands off the flight controls or look down at a dashboard during a high-stress engagement.
It's all about keeping their eyes outside the cockpit.
And speaking of keeping them safe, the source details some pretty heavy-duty protection. It has an armored cockpit and an armored engine compartment with Kevlar and ceramic plating.
Which adds a huge layer of survivability.
Yeah. It also features a countermeasure dispense system that includes 2 dispensers for chaff and flares, holding 30 cartridges each.
And those countermeasures are the primary defense against being a slow-moving target.
How do they work exactly?
Well, if a heat-seeking missile is launched from the ground, the flares create a massive burning decoy to trick the missile's thermal sensors.
Okay.
And if it's a radar-guided missile, the chaff dispenser shoots out a cloud of millions of tiny metallic fibers. It essentially creates blinding white noise on the enemy radar screen.
Wow. And if all of that fails, and the plane is going down, it's equipped with Martin Baker zero ejection seats.
Which is an absolute necessity.
This is a crazy piece of tech.
Yeah.
The 0 means 0 altitude and 0 airspeed. You could be sitting completely still on the runway tarmac, pull the handle, and rocket motors under the seat will blast you hundreds of feet into the air.
Deploying a parachute so you land safely.
You don't even need to be flying to survive a catastrophic failure.
That level of survivability is paramount. But what truly makes the A-29 the brain inside the brawn is how the aircraft processes the battlefield.
Right, the computers.
Embraer integrated 2 redundant mission computers, referred to as MDP, or Mission and Display Processor.
And this computing power, combined with the store management system we talked about earlier, allows the A-29 to manage highly complex automated attack modes.
Exactly.
The source lists a bunch of acronyms for these modes. CCRP. From what I understand, this isn't just dropping a bomb and hoping gravity does the rest.
Not at all. Take CCIP, which stands for Continuously Computed Impact Point.
Okay.
What's happening under the hood is staggering. The mission computers are taking real-time data from the aircraft sensors. They are calculating the current wind shear, the aircraft's exact altitude and velocity, barometric pressure, and even the aerodynamic drag coefficient of the specific bomb loaded on the wing.
Wait, it does all that math instantly.
Instantly and continuously. It paints a precise crosshair on the pilot's visor, showing exactly where that bomb will land if dropped at that exact microsecond.
That is wild. It completely removes the guesswork from precision strikes.
It does.
And to feed that computer data, the plane needs eyes. The source highlights an electro-optical and infrared sensor and EOI system that is deeply integrated into the weapons network.
Yeah, that sensor is phenomenal.
It says it can operate from 15,000 feet up and generate photos and live video of objects tens of miles away. It even has an embedded laser designator.
Which means the A-29 can fly 3 miles high, completely invisible and inaudible to the forces on the ground, while the pilot watches a crystal-clear video feed of a target 10 miles away.
That's almost unfair.
They can shine an invisible laser onto that target, and a smart bomb will ride that laser beam down to a pinpoint impact.
And they don't even need sunlight to do it. The cockpit lighting is heavily modified to be completely compatible with Generation 3 night vision goggles for both the pilot and the co-pilot.
Letting them run completely blacked out nocturnal special operations.
Plus, any video feed they capture or any targeting coordinates they generate can be securely beamed out to other friendly forces using an encrypted VUHF data link.
If we connect all these elements together, you really start to see the true nature of this machine.
Right. If I'm picturing this correctly, it's like taking a rugged, armored off-road rally car, stripping the interior and packing it with server-level computing power.
That is the perfect analogy.
It is incredibly tough on the outside, able to take a bullet and take off from a dirt road, but hyper-intelligent on the inside, networking securely with the entire digital battlefield.
It beautifully bridges the gap between rugged, dirty utility and high-tech informational warfare.
But this raises the ultimate glaring question of our deep dives.
Which is?
If an Air Force has the budget to buy laser designators, encrypted data links, Generation 3 night vision, and redundant targeting computers, why on earth would they put it all into a turboprop?
Ah, the paradox.
Yeah, Why not just put all that amazing tech into a jet? If you're spending all this money on the brains, why skimp on the engine?
Because in modern defense strategy, the ultimate driving force isn't just firepower or speed, it's economics.
Economics.
It is all about fleet optimization.
Okay, the economics of air power. Let's look at what is actually generating the power here. The source details a Pratt & Whitney PT6A-68C engine, outputting 1,600 shaft horsepower.
A very solid engine.
And it's governed by a power management unit, a PMU, which automatically handles a lot of the engine's complex functions so the pilot doesn't have to manually adjust fuel mixtures.
The PT6 engine family is absolutely legendary in the aviation world for its ruggedness and its incredible fuel efficiency.
And that reliability translates directly into the maintenance architecture.
Oh, absolutely.
The source notes the A-29 utilizes an MSG-3-based maintenance program, which is a massive shift from older military aircraft. It relies on an on-condition... Explain that, because I know old-school aviation maintenance usually involved tearing an engine completely apart every 100 flight hours just because a manual told you to.
Regardless of whether it was actually broken.
Exactly.
Yeah, the old method was purely schedule-based and incredibly wasteful. On-caution maintenance is driven by modern telemetry. It's a lot like the computer in a modern car.
Okay, how so?
Instead of rebuilding your engine every 10,000 miles, sensors monitor the vibration, the heat, and the fluid pressures in real time. It tells the ground crew exactly which specific component is showing where, allowing for rapid fault identification.
So you only fix what actually needs fixing.
Precisely. This requires minimal ground infrastructure and ensures the aircraft has a massive availability rate, even in terrible environmental conditions.
That makes a lot of sense.
But the real economic genius of the A-29 and the real answer to why it's a turboprop lies in its third operational role: tactical training.
Right, the source spends a lot of time on this concept of downloading training hours from fast jets down to the A-29.
Yes, downloading is the industry term.
The philosophy is to extend the lifespan of those multi-million-dollar jets and radically reduce operating costs.
Exactly.
But I have to ask, why would an Air Force use a propeller plane to train a pilot who's eventually going to fly a high-speed supersonic F-35? Isn't that fundamentally flawed?
Why do you think that?
Well, isn't that like practicing for a Formula One race by driving a go-kart?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we see that the A-29 is absolutely not a go-kart.
Okay, fair.
Remember that spaceship cockpit we just unpacked? The avionics systems, the hands-on throttle and stick, the OBOGS, the redundant mission computers calculating bomb drag?
Right.
These digital interfaces are identical to the systems found in 4th and 5th generation fighter jets.
Oh, I see where this is going. The pilot isn't just learning how to pull a stick and push rudder pedals.
No.
They are learning how to manage a massive influx of data.
Precisely. The source points out the A-29 has a head-up display, or HUD, with a color video camera alongside massive data recorders.
Which is great for debriefing, I'd imagine.
It is. It allows a student pilot to fly a complex mission, record every single digital input, and download it to a debriefing station afterward to analyze their performance.
That's incredibly valuable.
When a pilot is learning the extremely complex cognitive skills of coordinating a close air support mission, communicating securely with a JTAC on the ground, or managing infrared sensor pods, they do not need to be flying at Mach 1.5 to learn that.
I guess not.
Those cognitive system management skills can be taught at 200 knots just as effectively as they can at 600 knots.
And doing it at 200 knots in an A-29 turboprop costs an absolute fraction of the price of doing it in a jet.
A tiny fraction. Modern fast jets are incredibly expensive to keep in the air. We are talking $30,000 to $40,000 for a single flight hour.
Wow.
Not to mention the immense structural wear and tear supersonic flight puts on an airframe. By using the A-29 for advanced tactical training and systems management, Air Forces can offload thousands of training hours.
So they save those precious, highly expensive fast jet flight hours for the very end of training.
Exactly. When pure speed and thrust are truly the only requirements, it is a masterclass in an optimized, cost-effective defense infrastructure.
So what does this all mean for you listening to this deep dive right now?
Good question.
Obviously, most of us aren't out there purchasing light attack aircraft for national military. But the philosophy behind the Embraer A-29 Super Tucano is incredibly applicable to how we approach everyday problem solving in our own lives and businesses.
It really is.
It proves that you don't always need the most expensive, flashy, brute force tool to get the job done. Sometimes a highly efficient, custom-tailored solution, one that perfectly matches the environment you're working in, is vastly superior to just using the biggest tool in the shed.
That is exactly the core takeaway of the source material. The A-29 Super Tucano proves itself as a true 3-in-1 powerhouse.
Yeah.
It perfectly balances incredibly low operational costs with state-of-the-art sensory, survival, and weapon networking systems.
It really refuses to compromise on intelligence or lethality.
Right, it just packages those high-end capabilities into a vastly more sustainable, practical airframe.
It really is that multi-tool over the scalpel. It is rugged and tough on the outside, but hyper-intelligent on the inside.
But our deep dive into this architecture does leave us with a really fascinating, provocative thread to pull on.
Oh, what's that?
As technology continues to shrink, as optical sensors get smaller, as drone and AI capabilities rise, and as munitions become smarter and require less explosive yield to be effective,
Yeah.
will highly networked, low-footprint aircraft like the A-29 become the dominant central blueprint for the future of tactical aviation?
Wow, that is a huge shift in perspective. You're saying the Top Gun jet might not be the main character of the Air Force anymore.
Exactly. We really have to wonder if these highly efficient, data-driven turboprops will push those traditional, massive, supersonic fighter jets into a purely secondary, highly specialized role.
Because speed isn't everything anymore.
Right. If pure speed isn't the most important factor on the digital battlefield anymore, the entire sci-fi illusion of modern air power might just be turned upside down.
It's a completely different kind of arms race. One focused on brains and endurance, rather than just breaking the sound barrier. Definitely something to think about the next time you see a propeller plane flying overhead, and assume it's just a relic of the past. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.